All righty. Ben, you calling the roll tonight, I understand.
Yes, sir. Ms. Atkinson?
Here.
Mr. Ferguson?
Here.
Dr. Fitz? Mr. Howell?
Here.
Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Chair Davenport?
Here. Any changes, corrections, in addition to December's minutes? If not, a motion to accept, please.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lockwood, second by Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Thank
Got
you.
it? Did you get him?
I got him.
Before we begin our hearing tonight, our counselor, Mr. Hoy Hodges, will tell you what you have to do in order to get your request approved. Mr. Hodges?
And Mr. Chairman, on all of these applications tonight, I'd ask the following matters be made a part of the record: the joint zoning ordinance of Warren County, the comprehensive plan, along with all elements which are in effect, the staff report, and any exhibits which are attached to that staff report should also be made part of the record. And then also, I don't see who all's over there, but I see Rachel, Jimmy. Okay, and have them sworn in. Now, he was over there as well. And have them sworn in as, and their qualifications as zoning administrators recognized for the purpose of this hearing.
All right. You ladies swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see, the first thing on the agenda tonight is both a request for a variance and a waiver. And those are similar from the standpoint of requiring findings set forth in KRS 100.243. The board must find that the requested variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, that it will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, that it will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, that it will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of requirements of the zoning regulations. In regards to the waiver, you also have to make, those findings have to be made, but there's certain findings set forth in section 3.8.4 that also have to be addressed. The other items are all applications for conditional use permits, and there are certain findings that the board must make in those as well. The board must find that the use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it is proposed, that the use will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services, that the use will not constitute a nuisance, and that it adequately addresses the review criteria set forth in section 3.9.4 of the zoning ordinance, and also that it's in compliance with any specific use standards that may apply, and if it's for a short-term rental, there are specific use standards that must be addressed. But before you get that far, and I mentioned the review criteria set forth in 3.9.4, you know, it says that the applicant must adequately address the review criteria, one of which is compatibility. So you must address the issue of compatibility and any other criteria set forth in 3.9.4 that may apply to your requested conditional use. In order to prevail, you need a majority vote, and it'd be an affirmative vote of those present. The pass vote has no force or effect. If anyone is dissatisfied or feels aggrieved by the decision here tonight, you have 30 days to file an appeal, and that will go directly to Warren Circuit Court.
All right. Thank you, sir. Our first request tonight, Eagle Ridge Developers, LLC, has filed an application for a variance of 16.27 feet from the 25 feet front yard setback to allow an existing accessory building to be located 8.73 feet from the property line, and a waiver to allow a proposed residence to be located behind the accessory structure on the property located at 0 Clover Hill Street. And this property is zoned RE Residential Estate. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-app meeting for the property that you mentioned on January the 10th. The current zoning is RE, Residential Estate. The current land use is vacant. And the applicants did supply their variance and waiver exhibit for you, and that can be found on page 9 of your packet for reference. The applicants are requesting a variance of 16, so this will be a two-part application. The applicants are requesting a variance of 16.27 feet from the required 25-foot front yard building setback to allow an existing accessory building, more specifically a barn, to be located 8.73 feet from the property line. And if the variance is approved, the applicants are also requesting a waiver to allow proposed residence to be located behind that barn, which would become an accessory structure to the proposed home. So, looking in the middle of the page, there's a zoning ordinance reference, Article 4, Section 4.4.5.b. In the Property Development Standards Table, the front yard setback in the RE zone is 25 feet. And in Article 4, Section 4.4.5.e.1, no accessory building or structure shall extend upon the front of the principal structure in the RE zone. Bottom of page 1 are the variance findings for your reference. Looking over at page 2 are the waiver findings for your reference. At the bottom of page 2, the applicants did submit a narrative to address those waiver and variance findings, and the board should consider if the applicants have adequately addressed the findings required for granting the variance and waiver. Staff has included a couple points for the board to consider on page 1. But if we look over to page 3, under the conditions, Section 3.7.5 of the zoning ordinance states that in granting a variance and a waiver, the board may attach such conditions regarding the location of the proposed building, structure, or use as it may deem advisable in the furtherance of the proposals of the ordinance. If the application is approved, staff does suggest a couple of conditions. 1, a revised plat must be submitted to staff for review, approval, and recordation in order to remove the note about the existing barn being removed, and in order to reduce the existing public utility easement and water line easement to 8.75 feet, which runs along the front property line, and that must be done before a building permit. And the applicant shall apply for and seek approval of a building permit for the proposed primary residence within 6 months of the approval of the variance and waiver if approved. Looking back at page 1 to the points to consider, the board should consider if the requested variance and waiver arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity. The applicants knowingly developed the subdivision with the existing barn located in the required front yard setback. The structure was noted to be removed upon recordation of the plat in 2018 as it encroached into the required setback and is not permitted as a standalone structure in the current RE zoning classification. The board should consider if the proposed variance and waiver will alter the essential character of the general vicinity. There are no other properties in the subdivision with an accessory building located in front of the primary residence. All other properties in the subdivision are zoned RE and are subject to the same restrictions relating to placement of an accessory structure in front of the primary residence. That is all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions of the staff from the board? Any questions of the staff? Thank you. Is the applicant here? You just step up.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. Your full name and address?
Tad Pardue, 1010 College Street.
You're an
West Worth,
attorney, aren't you?
Georgia.
You're an attorney, you don't have to swear. I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to actually own the barn and maintain it?
You care to answer that, James? Okay. Keith Holland is the gentleman that is interested in purchasing the lot to construct a residence.
And so he knows he has to keep up the barn and maintain the
Yes, he
barn?
does.
Okay. Any other questions from the board of the applicant?
Yes, what changed from when the plat was filed?
I think it was simply, the variance request was brought about by Mr. Holland's desire to retain the barn on the property and use it as an accessory structure. I think originally, when the property was developed, it was not envisioned that the barn would stay where it is. But
So
I
it's not the property developers, it's the new owner of the lot that wants to keep the barn, in other words?
Well, the developer still owns the lot,
Okay.
but the gentleman that's interested in purchasing the lot wants to do so provided that the variance and the waiver is approved.
Keep the barn, okay. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Sure.
Is there any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the request for a variance and a waiver at 0 Clover Hill Street, docket number 2024-V-01, with the conditions outlined in the staff report. A variance of 16.27 feet to allow an existing accessory structure to be located 8.73 feet from the front property line, and a waiver to allow an existing accessory building or structure to extend beyond the front of the proposed principal structure. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of this variance and waiver will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Courtney, do you want to make sure you put the conditions that they had in there?
Yes, it refers to the staff report
Oh,
conditions.
did you? Okay, all right, sorry. All right,
With the conditions outlined.
yeah. Proper motion. All right, motion by Ms. Atkinson, second by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to abstain. I'm in close friendship with the owners of the development, so it'd be unfair for me to vote.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, your request has been approved. Thank you all for coming down. Our next request tonight, Myanmar Assembly of God, Inc., applicant and Cannon Commercial Properties, LLC, owner, have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a religious institution on the property at 147 St. Charles Street. Now, this property is owned LI Light Industrial. Ms. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair Davenport. We had a pre-application meeting back in January for the property at 147 St. Charles Street, outlined in yellow on the aerial view. The property is currently zoned light industrial, and the current use of the property is commercial. And the applicants have requested a conditional use permit to operate a religious institution on the property. And you can see midway down page 1, Section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance requires a conditional use permit to operate a religious institution on property zoned light industrial. Then at the bottom of page 1, you'll see that the applicants supplied 5 conditions as a part of this request. Number 1 states that church activities will take place between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., with exceptions for special days including but not limited to holiday celebrations, special camps, weddings, and funerals. 2, the building will be brought into compliance with applicable building codes for the proposed religious institution use prior to occupancy. 3, the principal structure's square footage will remain the same. 4, any permanent freestanding sign will be a maximum of 12 feet in height and 40 square feet of sign face area. And 5, there will be a maximum of 272 people in the congregation. On page 2, you have the conditional use permit findings for your reference. And with that, the staff did not have any points to consider pending any public hearing and testimony.
All right,
That
any
is all
que-
for the staff report, but I'll answer any
I'm
questions.
sorry. Any questions from the board of the staff? Board got any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, are the applicants here? Okay, that's everybody. Does the board have any questions of the applicants? Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? How about a motion, please?
I make the motion to approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-01 for a religious institution located at 147 St. Charles Street with the conditions as presented in the staff report. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the uses are not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which they are proposed. The uses will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services. The uses will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, that the uses otherwise meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Motion on Ms. Atkinson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, your request has been approved. Thank you all, and good luck to you out there. Appreciate it. Our next request tonight, Bluegrass Farms Learning Center LLC applicant and Justin and Kaylee Lawrence, owners, have filed an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a daycare on the property 446 Bluegrass Farms Boulevard. Now, this property is zoned AG Agricultural. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-app meeting for this property on January the 4th. Property is zoned agriculture, and the current land use is commercial. And again, the applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a daycare. This property was approved for a daycare in 2010, and the conditions were amended in 2013. The new applicant is seeking the CUP because a condition was placed in the 2013 application that nullifies the CUP if the property is ever sold. So that is why they are before you this evening. Middle of the page is a zoning ordinance reference, Article 5, Section 5.1, the use table. A conditional use permit is required to operate a daycare on property zoned agriculture. Below that are the specific use standards for daycares for your reference. Over to page 2, under the conditions, the applicants supplied 2. There will be a maximum of 30 children, and hours of operation will be 6:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. We did include just a little staff note here. The amended conditions that were approved in 2013 included 25 children. So the new applicant is requesting 5 more than what was approved, and the hours of operation were 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the new application is proposing 30 children and more restrictive hours of operation at 6:30 a.m. and 5:30. And both applications consisted of Monday through Friday as days of operation. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for your reference. And then looking back at page 1, under the points to consider, none pending public hearing and testimony. So that's all we have for the staff report. We can answer any questions.
I assume, you may not know the answer to this, that the increase in 5 children, that the 1,800 square foot in the house is still large enough to handle 30 children?
Yeah, I spoke
according
to the applicant. I think she's already done her due diligence and has reached out to the Cabinet for Health and Family Services for maximum, minimum,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But she can probably address that.
Any other questions of the staff from the board? And applicants are here, I understand. All right. Does the board have any questions of the applicants?
Do we,
You might not have to say anything. Do you have a question?
only, do
Let
they,
me swear them in first. We need to swear you in if you don't mind. Can we get your full name and address, please?
Mary Elizabeth Jackson and 5840 Galloway's Mill Road.
You swear to tell the truth, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Atkins?
just have a simple question. Obviously, I hope this works out for you guys. As far as a plan, I know you have to meet all the requirements, but drop off and pick up for children, what's the plan about that?
Usually daycares, parents will stagger in, but there's a circle driveway there, and it just feeds right in and then right out.
Okay, so you intend to keep that driveway and
Yes.
use that as, okay. That was my only question,
Sure.
Mike, just safety.
All right. Any other questions of the applicant?
Are you gonna fill that hole in the middle of that driveway?
Eventually, we might have to.
He's nodding yes, sorry. All right, any other questions of the applicants? All right, any opposition to this request? Any opposition? All right, a motion, please?
I'm-
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, swear in.
Yeah, your full name and address?
I'm an attorney at law here in Bowling
Okay.
Green, Kentucky. My name is B.
Okay,
Catherine
that's all right if
Moran.
you're an attorney at law. Yeah. Did you have a?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. The only thing that I would like to interject on this is if we could, we humbly request that there not be any sort of stipulation that this certified land use ends upon a sale. We want it to run with the land. We wouldn't be here today if that wasn't in the last permit.
Okay.
So keep it as a daycare, is what you're proposing. In other words, not have it contingent on selling the property.
Right, because they haven't, so the applicants have not officially gone to the closing table yet. That it is a contingency in their sales contract that this is approved, this conditional use permit. And so what we would like to make sure is that this runs with the land. It's not going to end.
The reason that's put in there most of the time is some of these daycare centers are in more of a residential area, and the owners that come are just fine perhaps, but we want to make sure that if they decide to sell it, that the new people don't take advantage of the situation and try to go out and beyond. But this location, what it is, I don't see.
So what I don't want to have happen is that once this goes to record, if it stipulates the same thing, if the property is sold, then the CUP will no longer be valid,
I understand.
then I'm right back in the same
understand.
situation that I am currently.
That's
as
what I
far
was
as-
trying to, in some other locations, it's a little more of a concern for us. I don't think this location is probably going to be that kind of concern for us, so. okay.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board of the lady? Thank you, ladies. Any opposition to this request? Any opposition? Motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-02 for a daycare located at 446 Bluegrass Farms Boulevard with the conditions as presented in the staff report. And I don't see that it specifies that if the property changes hands, that it would automatically assume that someone would have to refile.
That was always John's favorite.
Yes, yeah. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the uses are not detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which they are proposed. The uses will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services. The uses will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, that the uses otherwise meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Motion by Ms. Atkinson, second
Second.
by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, your request's been approved, and your request is also not in there, so it's in there that, what you wanted, I guess what I'm trying to say. So anyway, good luck to y'all. Thank you, appreciate it. Our next request tonight, Blue Roan LLC has filed an application for a conditional use permit in order to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 158 East 11th Avenue. And this property is zoned RM4 multifamily residential. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting for the property over on East 11th on December 28th of last year. The current zoning of the property is RM4. Current land use is single-family residential. And there's their supplied site plan, which can be found on page 7 of the staff report. The applicants are requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental. The zoning ordinance reference in the middle of page 1, Article 5, Section 5.1 of the use table, a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned RM4, multifamily residential. The specific use standards for a short-term rental are there on the bottom of page 1. And then looking over to page 2 for their supplied conditions. Number 1, there will be a maximum of 2 rooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 2 vehicles in the designated parking area. Number 3, quiet hours will be from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And number 4, no signage on the property. So looking back to page 1, staff have no points to consider pending public hearing and testimony here tonight. And that's all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Didn't we approve 1 or 2 of these on Kentucky Street right in that same general area last couple of years?
I
think-
believe so.
I think we had
I
a
think
couple
we
on
might
Kentucky
have.
Street. Huh? I think we did.
We approved one on East 13th.
Yeah, somewhere in that.
Yes, in
okay.
that general vicinity,
All right,
yes.
Any questions of the staff from the board?
The parking, I see here that they're designated one car behind the other. Is that workable?
We don't have any restrictions on, location of the parking as long as it meets sufficient sizing of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Applicants here? I assume you're the applicant. Okay. And you have any questions of the applicant?
I do.
Okay, would you step up, please? We need to swear you in. Forget your full name and address.
Tim Page, 5301 Jackson Bridge Road.
You swear to tell the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm just following up on Lloyd's question. If someone applies or wants to rent, are they renting the whole house or are they renting a room?
Oh, the whole house.
Okay. So the fact that you've got 2 rooms for rent, the truth of the matter is it's not just 2 rooms.
What do you mean by that? There's 2
Well-
bedrooms. That's all
Okay,
there is there.
that's
Two
what I'm
bedrooms.
getting to.
But they're
Two
renting the whole
bedrooms.
house, we're not renting it per bedroom. no.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Because the whole issue with the vehicles would be if you had two different
Oh, no, we're not,
groups.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. No,
Okay.
it's the whole house.
Okay, that's what I was after.
All right. Satisfy you? Okay. Any other question on the applicant? Thank you, sir. Any opposition to this request? Motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-03 for a short-term rental located at 158 East 11th Avenue with the conditions as presented in the staff report. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it is proposed. The use will not contribute toward overburdening of municipal services. The use will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, that the use otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
Proper motion.
Motion by Ms. Atkinson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockwood.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Chair Davenport?
Yes, your request has been approved, sir. Thanks for coming down. Good luck. Any old business? Are all of our lawsuits old business or new business? We've been sued, what, twice last month?
Mike, how long have you been on this board?
Long time.
I know, I was just thinking, I've represented this board for as long as you've been here.
Oh, yeah.
It's been 30-some
Yeah.
years.
I was on the board when Basil Griffin was still the county judge. And
so
Mike
I know I'm
Yeah.
on for
Careful when you
20.
tell your age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mike Calder was the county attorney, and he was our attorney here. And we were doing the attorneys on Western at that time being, before they had their own. It's probably been since, what, the 70s, 35 years maybe?
I've been on 22.
Are you
so
telling me I
know.
need to go? or something?
No, the reason I'm asking, I've represented the board for the same amount of time, and we've never had 4 appeals at the same time.
Oh, I
Of
know.
course, we've never had 13 short-term rentals on
Exactly.
a docket.
Well, we've
So
had,
right now, we have 4.
yeah, we've had more lawsuits in the past year than we've had in my 35 years or whatever it is combined, is what you're trying to say, I
Well,
think.
you
yeah.
know, you can, you were served twice in 1 month.
I know.
But you know, we have one, that's the Nancy Roberts appeal.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
property on
I
Catherine,
remember that. Yeah.
where short-term rentals denied.
Yeah.
And that's been submitted for a decision, so we're just waiting on Judge Grice on
All right.
that one. There's that Reese appeal, which was the short-term rental denied at 1657 Magnolia.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the
I remember
process
that.
of writing briefs on that. But the 2 most recent ones, and these were done within a month.
All right.
The Bowling Green Assembly of God on the property out on Matlock Road for a church that was denied.
That doesn't surprise me.
And then the most recent one was filed by Two Rabbits Farm LLC
Mm-hmm.
for the property at 4225 Bell Reeve Circle.
Right.
I guess how you pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one out off of Boat Landing Road.
And
Yeah,
that was
on the-
also a denial of a conditional use permit for
Oh,
a short-term. Anyway, we have 4 pending, and that's unheard of. So-
Well, and we've never had, though, think of the number of cases, like normally we'll have 4 or 5 like this. We were having 12, 14, so
We had
that's why.
21, like 18.
Yeah.
What'd you put on there,
Yeah.
20 or 22 of them?
It was a bunch,
17, what it was? That was awful.
yeah. So it's no wonder we've had appeals as many as we've shuffled through here.
But I think every one of them are over short-term rentals, besides the
Yes.
campground we
Except
had.
Yeah.
And the church.
Yeah.
Well, I understand, I knew they'd do that. It didn't
Yeah.
surprise me a bit. Yeah.
I had to miss that meeting, but when me and my wife went out and looked at that, I knew right off the bat we were going to get in trouble with that.
Well, it's just it was a tough,
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
it was tough.
So I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for generating attorney's fees.
When are you going to give my, I can't say kickback, can I? When did I get my percentage of it, is what I'm
We
trying to say.
are on camera.
Just kidding. But no, you're welcome. You do a good job for us. We never have actually, I say knock on, we haven't lost a case. I don't think we've been overturned any, have we? That I know of.
I believe there was one in the history of this board that involved an airstrip.
Not since I've been.
No.
Well, we weren't,
Back in Chet Gilbert's.
we weren't overturned on it. That was the mayor's daddy, Alcott.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It was just sent back.
Yeah,
For
wasn't overturned.
further decision.
Now, we had one before you came on, I think, out in Shawnee Estates, where a guy bought a lot out there for $1,000, and it was in a flood zone.
Yeah.
And long story short, ended up at Board of Adjustments, and we were like, that's going to flood. No wonder you got that lot for $1,000, it's going to
Sure,
flood.
that one.
And we approved it because why not? But we also, I think we put in there, if it floods, don't come back and sue us because we're telling you up front. And then Tom Lewis, our old friend, sent it back to us with no decision made. So we're like, well, what do we do now? I think we just went
We're here
ahead.
the second time.
I think we just approved it again. And guess what? In 3 years, I noticed where that lot had flooded and they had to tear that house down they built out there. But anyway. All right, any other new business tonight? Anything? Anybody else? All right, good meeting tonight. Thank you all. We're adjourned. Thank you, sir.